All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to our Friday afternoon training session. So I think this is the last one for the year, and then we'll kick off again next year, obviously. But today we're going to be going through the new iGyro Portal Invoicing Module. So for those that are familiar with the iGyro Desktop Invoicing Module, this is just the next progression to that, moving that into the portal. So I'm just going to stop sharing for a second to allow some more people in from the lobby. So we're back on now. So we're in the portal here. So we'll click over here onto the main menu on the left-hand side, and we're looking for invoices here. So this menu has been here before with these options for waiting on my approval and waiting on management approval. They're still useful, especially for those, say, project managers or managers that like to work off their mobile phones. So if you're just purely going in to try and approve an invoice that the accounts payable staff has entered, you would still use these if you're using your mobile device. Otherwise, you can also use the new module, just like the iGyro Desktop. So I'll click into this one here. And the first thing you'll notice here is we've got a drop-down menu at the top here. So if you're a bookkeeper that maybe works for lots of different franchises or businesses, you will have a list here, and you can choose who to select, so which business that you'd like to do the work for. If you don't have access to multiple businesses, this menu won't be here at all, and you'll be left with just these other two options here for tools and email. So the first thing for you to do is obviously select the business that you're working in. All right, so again, this is quite familiar if you've been used to using the iGyro Desktop. And you'd click through these different folders here. So a couple of enhancements, it's a lot quicker as well. So you'll notice as you're flicking through these, it's a lot snappier and just nicer to use there. Now, another big problem we've had with the desktop is screen resolutions. So if you've had a very high resolution screen, the iGyro Desktop wasn't coping real well with that. And we've resolved that in this portal version here. So if you're running a 2K screen or 4K screen, you'll probably find that all of this detail here, you'll see a lot more of that detail on screen. If you have a lower res screen, you'll see a lot less content in the middle here and a lot less rows. So there are a few tricks. If you're in that situation, you'd like to get a little bit more screen real estate on a lower resolution screen. So we can hide this menu on the left because it's not really required while you're working in this invoicing module. So you can do that by clicking on this arrow here. It'll give you a bit more space and an extra column or so in here. So as you click on each one of these, the content for that row or that invoice will get loaded on this right-hand side. Again, if you have a high resolution screen, you'll probably find that you don't need a scroll bar here either. All right, so again, if you want a little bit of extra real estate and you're just working, say, out of this inbox here, there's a little tiny arrow here. We can click on that and it'll shrink away that folders menu and give you a little bit more space here to work with. All right, if you just like looking at the grid, you can do the same on this right-hand side here by clicking on that little arrow. And just gives you a full view to work with that grid. So while you're in that grid, there's lots of filters that you can use. So if you've loaded a set of invoices here, you can use the filtering if you'd like. So for example, if you just wanted to look up, say, Reese company here, we can use these filter options. Just start typing the word Reese and apply that filter, and it will just give us the Reese invoices in this screen. All right, I've got a question here about the tools at the top. I'm not quite sure what that's referring to there, Shane, but we will come back to that. I'll clear that one there. All right, I'll just bring these little menu options back for us. All right, so as we're clicking on these, obviously the invoice details are shown over on this side. Again, this is very familiar to you if you're using the Xero Desktop, and you still need to enter in all your detail. Obviously, all this information can get automatically captured if you've set up your rules correctly in your database.
All
right, so once you've entered all of your info, you've still got your verify data entry button. So if you're a bookkeeper, you would hit that button there. It's still letting us know we haven't entered all the information. So we're missing a due date here. All right, so I've just verified that one, and it's assigned to the project manager and assigned to a manager because this particular one has gone over order. So we still get all of that detail there to let us know if invoice has come in and it hasn't been ordered, so we don't have an order for it, or if it doesn't match the order, you'll get some visual cues about that. Now, the Xero desktop generally has a invoice, like a PDF invoice that shows up as you click through all of these, just to make it a bit easier on the screen and to fit different resolutions of screen. We've got that tucked away in the tools menu here. So we've got a variety of tools in here, and some of these options to view the document is this single screen option and also dual screen. So I can highly recommend, if you're doing this regularly, if you're working in the invoicing module regularly, use a dual screen. So have 2 screens on your desk, and that way you can look at a full screen PDF invoice and the purchase orders on one screen and do your data entry on another. All right, so we'll look at this single screen option here first. So if you're working off one screen, you don't have the option for a second. You probably need to just work off a PDF invoice you can see in the one window, and that's what this is. So the trade-off is here that it's sort of hiding some of the content behind it. So you can resize it if you like. You can zoom in. So I'm just doing that with the scroll wheel on the mouse. I'm holding down Control and scrolling in and out. We've got the zoom tools here as well. Lots of different pan and rotate type tools. And also we've got this button here for a full screen. So if you really need to see it big, you can click on that one and that'll take up the whole screen. All right, so if we leave that tool open, the single screen tool, that'll just stay over where you put it. And as you click through each of these, it'll refresh with the right PDF there. All right, and that allows you to look at that PDF while you're doing your data entry as well. All right, the other option here is the dual screen. So I'll click onto that one. All right, so generally what you'd do is you'd work on this screen on you drag that off to a second screen and do your data entry on your first screen. This dual screen window here has all of your invoicing rules. So we've got some detailed instructions for all of these in our knowledge library as well. So you can refer to those if you need some text guidance on what we're looking at here. But the invoice rules is training Xero how to read a new invoice when it comes in and to automatically capture the values from that. All right, so I might just run through this one as well. I'll just clear all this detail out and show you how you would train one from scratch. All right, so this is a new invoice that come in. You haven't read this one before. You could jump into this dual screen mode and you would start finding the words that hook into this reference field, for example. And in the case of this invoice, we're looking for this invoice number. So we'd highlight that. If you copy, that'll copy to your clipboard and you can just paste it in. But there's a button here to just copy that text straight into there. So that'll go green if it's found that detail. If you typed it in wrong, once you tab out, it'll highlight in red to let you know that this PDF invoice doesn't contain the text that you're looking for. All right, and then we need to tell it where the value lives as well. So I've just double clicked that to select it. Click on that button there to copy it over. We'll move on to the order number. So this one is here. Double clicked again. And our document date lives up here. And due date, there should be one here somewhere. Actually seeing a due date on there. Anyway, we can go straight to our total here. There's our value. All right, then we would apply that. All right, if it goes orange, it just means it's found multiple versions of what you've copied here. So it's not a problem because it's using this first text in your hook link here to try and find that value around as close to that word as it can. All right, so once you've applied all of that, that means any new invoices that come in from this business, as long as it reads the ABN number correctly, read all of these details automatically for you, and you won't need to do the data entry for that. All right, now this screen as well has some tools. If you're working on a smaller screen, you've got all the same sort of functionality as the previous one, where you can hide those panes. You can see in this one, we've got an invoice in the middle and we've got the matching corresponding purchase order on that right-hand side. So that makes it easy if there's a discrepancy between the purchase order and your invoice. You can easily look at them side by side and work out why there is that discrepancy.
Tim, Shane has raised his hand there. You might want to address a question.
I actually can't see that while I'm showing my screen. That's a shame. So Shane's question is typed in tools up the top. So I think that's sort of what we're going through there. Diana's got a question as well. Does the bill still show up? Oh, okay, so I must have missed that a bit earlier. So we were showing that bill just there as well. All right, so a lot of the other tools have moved up to this tools menu as well. So process invoice rules, that means if invoices come in, you've retrained it on the new invoicing rules, you would click that button and that would use those rules to fill out the data for you. Invoicing processing options, that's moved as well. So sometimes there's a need when an invoice comes in that you need to force it via the email address. So sometimes Xero can't read the ABN number because it's come through as a picture rather than text. So if it comes from a particular email address, you can force it with this tick box to force it to assign the correct supplier, I should say. And this is also where you would train it. If there's a 2-page document that comes in, or say in the case of Bunnings, you might get 13 invoices in one single PDF. You would use the split options to split that page up as well from here.
Sorry, Tim, I actually just wanted to ask the question about people that send in invoices that don't match payment terms or don't put in payment terms on their invoices. With the introduction of business contacts and the like, is there going to be the ability to say store someone's standard payment time frame? So in the instance of Bunnings, I don't believe they actually print payment dates on any invoice. That's always got to be something manually entered.
Yeah, yep.
And other people that are 30 days and a month, but potentially, and I've seen it on more than one occasion where people send you invoices with payment terms that aren't consistent with what's agreed elsewhere in a trade agreement or in a supply chain agreement. Is there the possibility, firstly, to store someone's standard payment time frames and have that override what's stated on a document as a second step to that?
Yeah, I hadn't actually thought about overriding that step, so that's probably a good option to think about if we find that happens often. Where we've got to in terms of those payment terms is that we're still working on business contacts, like a full business contact module coming into the portal. So that's sort of the next stage after what we're looking at here. And there's lots of enhancements, including that payment end of terms that will bring in at that stage, as well as looking for contractors' licenses and things to raise red flags. So,
yeah, fantastic. I mean, look, most trades will go and write on their invoice 5-day terms, even though we don't ever pay trades 5 days terms. So that's why I was mentioning the ability to say record what is actually on the document, but have a way of saying, well, no, we're not paying that, and have the correct date flow through to Xero being the actual payment terms.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So that's really something for a development conversation. So we will come back to that, but I think that's an excellent idea.
Cool.
Very good. All right. All right, so again, yes, more of these tools have been moved to this tools menu. Some of them were previously a right click on each of these. So invoice split, for example, click on that. So you just follow the on-screen prompts, which is very much the same as the desktop version. And we do have full help guides on how to do those as well. All right, and the other one that's sort of tucked away is this email. That used to be a right click in the desktop version as well. So now we've just got the option from here. So you'd select the row that you're interested in, and you can choose these pre-formatted options for email, and you can send an email straight from here. So this one automatically addresses to whoever you received the invoice from, and it attaches as a link, attaches the invoice details here as well. All right, then you just send that off. All right, so we will have a few more additional details here, planning to have ways of linking through to the job. So it's a quick link click to get through to look other details up about a job. An example of that is this one here. We've got a quick link for the company. So if I click on that, that'll open up a new screen here with some company details. So you can change the ABN and GST details if you needed to, or some advanced options for linking to Xero contacts. Now this will change once we get the company module built in. So we'll get a bit more detail and a full editor here. So you can change and look up company details like phone numbers and addresses, etc. Alrighty, so we did make mention in the release notes here that we've got some better processing around GST. So previously we had some issues where a company might be registered for GST, but only some of the line items include GST components, some are GST free. So as of next week, the backend still needs to be released to match this software version that you're looking at. It will calculate the correct GST and add line items as appropriate for GST discrepancies. So there's some line items that don't attract GST. Once you synchronize that with Xero, the line items will be adjusted to account for that. All right, now if you did need to download a PDF invoice, there's a link at the bottom here as well. So you may not notice that. Just at the bottom here, there's a file link. If you click on that, that'll download that. And that one just opened up in my PDF browser. Also in your downloads folder on your computer. All right, so I've got all our other folders. One I'd like to show you as well here is this imported to Xero. So if we look at some of these are the ones that have already been synchronized into Xero. You'll notice that you've got a Xero link button here as well. So if we click on that, that should take us into Xero. It's asking me to log in. All right, so it's a quick link into Xero so you can see what's been entered into Xero. You'll notice that Xero is also uploading the PDF directly into Xero as well. And the reciprocal is also true. So if you're working in Xero and you've got an invoice that's been synchronized from Xero into Xero, you'll have a button here to go to Xero. Go to Xero. I'll take you to some invoice detail there. Alrighty, so still some plans to make it easy sync from here. So once you've done processing for the day or for the hour, you're ready to synchronize it, we should have some options here to synchronize with Xero. But until we get that in there, we've still got our original method of synchronizing. So we'd go up to the admin menu. I'll just right click that and open that in a new tab there. So you can just left click it, but I'm just trying to leave this window open. All right, so you'll notice here, which has never previously been there, is that if you have access to multiple groups, multiple businesses, you'll need to choose which group you're trying to connect Xero to. So make sure you double check that and make sure you're not connected to the wrong database here. So you'll notice that on all of these screens. So if you click on each one, you'll have the drop-down box as appropriate. All right. So you just start sync there, and that would start that one off.
Excuse me, Tim, what information syncs through? Is it only approved invoices or all invoices?
It's approved invoices. So if you go through and verify the data entry, you'll, like our example here, it's waiting on the master to sign it as a manager. Sorry, that one's already approved, so that one's good to go. So essentially anything that's been approved by either the project manager or a manager in the business, they're the ones that get synchronized through to Xero as a draft invoice.
Right here.
So you'll notice in your business here, you'll have these folders here for waiting on my approval or waiting on approval. Anything in here shouldn't have been synchronized into Xero yet. Once they're approved by the person it's waiting on, that's when they'll be uploaded in that next sync.
So that means if you were running a Xero report, for example, to check profitability of a job, it would not include not yet approved invoices because they wouldn't exist in Xero yet. Yeah,
that's right. Yep. So even if you do synchronize those in, you'll probably find that they may still be sitting in the draft as well. So you couldn't rely on that information anyway. So
yes,
I think if you're doing a profitability, you'd probably be looking at that after the fact, after a job's pretty well completed, and you'd expect all invoices to already be in. All right, so if there's any other questions, let me know. I'm sort of drawing to an end here, but I just did want to show you that there's still some functionality here with this grid that you can use that may be useful. So I've got our filtering that I showed you in this menu option here. I've also just got a text filter, so you can type in anything you like here. Type in the word energy, but you can also use the grouping functions as well. So in this case, we could maybe group by company name if we wanted to, and that would group all these things together. So we'd see all our Bunnings ACT invoices grouped here. Bunnings New South Wales. Once you finish with the grouping, you can just close that off. And again, we're just looking at the waiting on approval section here. We've got a waiting on, so you can see who this is waiting on. If we drag that one in there, you can group them all together. So you can see that Tim Demo has got all of these to approve, and we've got 3 waiting for manager approval. Righty, I guess one last thing here is we've got some warnings here. So as you're working through here, and we'll improve this over time as well, some various warnings to make sure you don't pay something unnecessarily. But this warning here is showing us that we've processed 2 orders with the same order number, and it's telling us we've got 2 duplicates that have come into the system, and also this reference number. So we've entered this reference number at least twice in here as well, according to this little label. So we click on those labels, that'll do a quick filter and show us these 2 duplicates. Alrighty, and probably one last thing to note here is that in the desktop version, we did have some dates at the top. So only invoices between a particular date period would show. We've removed that from this version here. So it's just working on all dates, and it seems very responsive, so it makes sense to do it that way. In the future, if we notice that things do start to slow down doing it with this approach, then we'll probably reintroduce those date criteria there as well.
Well, thank you, Tim. You've achieved a significant milestone for the end of the year, a long-awaited update. And I guess on behalf of all our webinar attendees this afternoon, we want to thank you for the quality of the webinars this year. They've been very informative and very helpful in terms of systemising our builders' businesses. And we'd also like to wish you a very happy birthday, and thank you for giving us such a quality webinar on your birthday, and we hope you have a great day.
Oh, well, thanks for making it embarrassing. So yes, this was a birthday edition. Yeah, so we've had lots of webinars throughout the year. Yeah, it's been great. We've also had lots of other topics as well. We've had other guest speakers, so I think we've had a good change of different topics throughout the whole year.
Yeah,
it's been really good. All right,
good.
well, thanks for joining everyone, and we'll see you all again next time.
All right, thanks, Tim.